What's going on, guys? With an E here, back with another League of Legends guide, this time Neeko. Neeko is the newest champion to hit the Rift, and personally I think she's got a lot of ways to outplay and outsmart her opponents with her passive, where she's able to transform into her jungler or her support or her ADC and really bait people into you, as well as get inside someone's head and really know what they're thinking. Make them take fights on you that they don't realistically want, but they think that they want. And this way she has quite a high skill ceiling, but not in the way that you'd normally have with high mechanical combos and outplay potential, where like you have to press loads of buttons really quickly like a Zed or Azir. No, she's got a high skill cap in a mental way, where if you know a lot about the game and you know what your enemies are thinking, then it allows you to abuse that and give them false information and really get a lot out of this pick. So let's get into her abilities. Her passive, which we'll get into a bit later, is called Inherent Glamour. Her Q is called Blooming Burst, and it deals damage in an area of effect and pops every time that it hits an enemy champion, a big monster, or kills a minion, up to 2 more times for a total of 3 times. And it does less damage than the original pop, but it still does a lot of damage if you can hit all 3 pops. Her W is called Shapeshifter. Basically it lets her go invisible for a short period of time, I believe it's half a second, and gives you movement speed buff for 2 seconds. Now there's a passive part of a W as well, which every 3 auto attacks you will deal quite a large amount of damage and give you movement speed once again. I believe it's 40% at max rank. Now her E is Tangle Barbs, and it's basically a route that goes through enemies. It'll deal damage to minions, so it's good for wave clear as well. But if it hits 2 enemies and then a champion, the champion will be snared for a longer duration than the other minions. So normally it will only snare them for half a second, but then it can be empowered up to 1.5 seconds. So the more people you hit with your E, the longer the snare. And this ties in really well with her Q as well, because it means that you can set up your Q to pop multiple times once you hit your snare. And her ultimate is called Pop Blossom, which is a wind up, so it takes 1.25 seconds to channel, and then after the channel it will give you a shield and slow enemies around you for 0.75 seconds, and then after that it will stun enemies and deal a load of damage for 1.25 seconds. Now let's get into Neeko's runes. If you'd have asked me last patch, I'd have probably said that Dark Harvest was the best on her, as it did ridiculous amounts of damage. However, now that the meta's kind of a little bit more stable, I prefer to take Comet, Mana Flow Band, Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm from the sorcery tree, and then secondary, Cheap Shot and Ultimate Hunter. This is because it gives you a lot of damage and utility with the Mana Flow Band, whilst giving you AP innately for your ultimate, which has an insane AP ratio of 130%. And then the secondary tree is Domination. I take Cheap Shot because it deals more damage and true damage whilst enemies are CC'd, and Neeko has a lot of CC and does a lot of damage whilst enemies are CC'd, and it's on quite a low cooldown. I believe it's 6 seconds, so every time you can hit an enemy with your E and then press Q, you'll be dealing extra damage. And then Ultimate Hunter, because your ultimate cooldown is already pretty low and you can use it pretty much off cooldown, so this allows you to use it off cooldown even more often, so she feels even more overbearing for the enemy team. And then I take 20 ability power and the scaling health as stat boosts. But as you guys know by now, I never only give you guys one rune page, so this is more of a fun rune page. It's got Electrocute, Cheap Shot, Eyeball Collection and Ultimate Hunter. I've spoken about why you take some of this, but Electrocute is pretty easy to proc with your Q, E or EQ and then auto attack. It'll proc it, dealing loads of damage, as well as you're not even having to auto attack if you plan on using your ultimate. And then Mana Flow Band and Absolute Focus, for the same reasons I mentioned earlier. You get the utility and the mana from Mana Flow Band and a bit of AP, so that you can utilise your AP ratios because they are pretty insane. And you take the same stat boosts in this page as you do in the last one, but this page is a little bit more of a one-shot build. It's pretty much what Dark Harvest was last patch. As for Neeko's items, they're pretty standard as far as an AP mid laner goes. You start off with a Doran's Ring and 2 potions. You can start off with Corrupting and hard matchups and go into a Dark Seal if you want, but I prefer this start. And then I like to get Lost Chapter and Sork Boots, just because it gives you a lot of damage early on and you can actually one-shot people with a full combo once you've got Lost Chapter and Sork Boots. fully transform your Lost Chapter into a Luden's Echo, and this gives you a lot of wave clear and burst. And then your essential items after your Ludens and your Sork boots, I'd say, are Morellos, Zhonya's and Rabadon's. Your ultimate actually does go through Zhonya's, so you can press the R button and then Zhonya's and become untargetable but still do all the damage. So that's a really good tip to keep in mind, because it does allow you to get right into the middle of teams and really disrupt a team fight. Rabadon's is really good, even though it's not the best item at the moment. I'd say it's really good on Neeko because of her insane AP ratio on her ultimate. She really does well with ability power. And then you've got quite a lot of choice, like you can build Spooky Ghost if their team has a lot of champions that you can easily pick, Void Staff if they've got a tanky team and they've got a lot of magic resist, or Banshee's Veil if you feel like you need that extra defensive item as well as the Zhonya's. So you do have a bit of freedom on this champion, but I'd say the essential and the early game you shouldn't really mess with too much. Neeko's early game as far as her laning goes is really strong. She's got good wave clear and she can easily poke down enemies with her EQ combo because it goes through minions. She's also good against enemies that want to try and be aggressive onto her and try and get on her, because her ultimate, once they've used their dash to get onto you, there's no real way that they can dodge it, and that allows you to get your full damage combo off, and that deals a lot of damage. I recommend you try throwing a few E's through minions and try and hit the enemy champion with your E, and then, you know, land all 3 bits of your Q, because every time it hits a champion it pops again. This will let you poke down enemies really easily and put them to about a third of their HP, and then you can, you know, use your W to movement speed onto them, all EQ, you know, ignite, any of the above, and you'll be able to get quite a lot of solo kills on this champion. But the more important, and in my opinion the more interesting side of Neeko, is the roaming. She can roam early on pretty well because of her passive. It allows her to turn into the jungler and make it look like the jungler is bot side as you walk past, or top side, and then, you know, the enemy bot laner, if you're top side, play more aggressive, and then the jungler can gank that because they think the jungler is top side. It's a little bit confusing to explain just with words, but here's an example where I use the fact that I can turn into the jungler to bait an enemy team into a fight that they don't really want. What I do is I transform into Lee Sin and walk over the scuttle crab that's been taken by the enemy jungler, so they know that I'm coming up and they think it's a 1v2 situation. What they don't know is that the actual jungler is already there in the bush. He went there through Tribrush, and we're going to bait a 2v2. And as you see, we win the 2v2 pretty convincingly, get a flash, get a kill, and that allows us to snowball the game, and we can do this quite a lot. There's another clip a little bit further on where I pretend to be Pantheon in their vision, so they don't think that they will get ulted by Pantheon because they can see what I'm doing, but as you can see, the Pantheon ults down onto their face, blows them up, and we get another kill. So Neeko's passive can be used in loads of different situations. It's all about abusing the information that you know that the enemy team have and manipulating what they think is right. Neeko's mid game is where she's at her best. Her high base damage mixed with really good ability power ratios means that she's doing loads of damage and can pretty much 100 to 0 any champion with a full combo. Although in the meta that we're in at the moment there isn't really a mid game, it only really lasts 5 to 10 minutes, and it consists of roaming from your lane until Baron's up and then playing around Baron and Baron dancing. But this is where Neeko can really be a menace with her passive, because people aren't aware, they're kind of autopiloting because it's the mid game, it's, you know, the last bit of the laning phase, and people aren't fully focused, so they might fall for baits with your passive where they think that you're someone else with low HP, or maybe just thinking that you're a jungler covering your lane for the mid laner. But as I said, people are really autopiloting at this point and not fully focused, so you can abuse this to be a complete menace and go around blowing people up in the side lanes, you know, stop people from ganking the top laner, to snowballing bot lane so you can get free dragons. There is a lot that you can do with her passive, so you just have to be creative. You're going to see a few clips up on the screen right now where I use her passive for different things in different ways to trick the enemy team. As I said earlier on, it's just about kind of manipulating the information that the enemy is getting. What they think they see isn't going to be right when you've transformed into a jungler. But this is pretty much what you want to be doing in the mid game. As I said once again, there isn't really a mid game in this meta. You just want to wait for Baron to come up, and once Baron is up, you can really abuse people that try and start Baron on the enemy team because of all your AoE magic damage. You can really excel as that, but I'll get into that once we start talking about her late game. In this recording, you see me kill the top laner and then go into the river, transform as Pantheon so they can't see that I've transformed into Pantheon, and then hit the top lane tower. This makes bot lane think that Pantheon is top lane and there's no way that they could be ulted by him because, you know, the range isn't that long. However, little do they know that Pantheon's actually in the tri-brush of their bot lane and he ults in and gets a double kill, I believe, from it. So this is one of many ways where you can use Neeko's passive to influence a play without actually being there. It's kind of like Kindred's marks, where you can mark a laner that you're not actually going to gank, that makes them play passive, and top lane, you know, can play more aggressive. It's all that kind of mentality, so you can abuse this to get some extra kills for your team. As I said earlier on in the video, Neeko's late game is really good, especially when it comes to this Baron heavy meta that we're in at the moment. Her area of effect magic damage works really well because Baron shreds magic resist and deals damage to people that obviously are around the Baron, so this allows them to be chipped away slowly, and Neeko can realistically one-shot a lot of champions around the Baron pit. So whether your team is on Baron and the enemy team are coming towards you, you can let them engage, and as I said earlier, your ultimate is a really good re-engage tool, so if you let them come in, ult Zhonya's, you know, they realise they're stuck in this massive ultimate area of effect damage and CC, they can't really do too much. Or on the other side of things, you'll be the one going towards the enemy team on Baron, you can W ult, flash in, Zhonya's, any of the above, and deal a load of damage and let your team follow up because the enemy team will be chunked, there'll be a load of them missing loads of health. Even if you only nuke one or two people, it really gives your team an advantage in that area of play. Neeko is also really good at setting up hicks, as for the other reasons I've mentioned earlier on in the video when it comes to her passive, but also just because of the amount of CC and damage bursts that she has. She can E over a wall and press Q, and sometimes she'll even one-shot them just from that. Especially if you're ahead of the enemy team, then you're definitely going to be dealing a load of damage to people. You can pick people off, you can poke them down, and then use that to get a tower, because her tower taking is not bad, or just, you know, go to Baron because you deal a lot of damage to Baron as well, as the enemy team not being able to really come over to Baron because of the reasons I just mentioned about your ultimate being AoE with magic damage. But that is going to be it for this guide. I hope you enjoyed the Neeko guide. I am really ill, so sorry if my voice sounds super bad, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like and tell me what you guys enjoyed about the most. If you think there's stuff that I could improve with, also let me know in the comments. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.